The moment I saw my wife Jessa lean into Zane Marinor at the barley and rye, asking him to zip up her dress with that breathy little laugh of hers, I knew our marriage was over. Not because of the zipper. Hell, zippers break all the time. It was the way she touched his shoulder afterward, letting her fingers linger like she was testing expensive fabric. My name is Darren Halloway, and I own a custom auto shop on the south side of town. People underestimate guys like me. They see the grease under my fingernails and assume I'm just another wrench turner who peaked in high school. What they don't know is that I spent 10 years as a mechanical engineer before I got tired of corporate politics and bought my own place. I notice things. I remember everything. And right now, I was cataloging every detail of my wife's performance. "Darren, honey, could you get me another Cosmo?" Jessa called over, not even looking in my direction. She was too busy batting her eyelashes at Zane, who was practically preening under her attention. "Sure thing, sweetheart," I replied, keeping my voice steady. The bartender, a kid named Tommy who'd been working here since college, gave me a sympathetic look as he mixed the drink. Word travels fast in a place like this. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Not obvious, just holding it casually while I sipped my beer. The video quality was decent, and the audio picked up everything. Jessa's laugh, Zane's smug chuckles, the way she kept finding excuses to touch him. "Oh, Zane, you're so funny!" Jessa practically squealed as he told some story about his latest ad campaign. "Darren never tells me stories like that anymore." Zane shot me a look that was pure condescension. "Well, some of us have more exciting careers than others." I raised my beer in a mock toast. Here's to excitement. For the next hour, I watched my wife of 8 years flirt like a teenager at her first dance. The dress zipper became a running gag between them. Every few minutes, she'd claim it was coming undone again, and Zane would gallantly zip her up, his hands lingering on her back each time. Sasha, Jessa's best friend and partner in crime, kept shooting me nervous glances. She knew what was happening, probably helped plan it. Sasha worked at the same ad agency as Jessa and Zane, and she had a talent for stirring up drama wherever she went. "Maybe we should head home soon," Sasha suggested around 10 o'clock, but Jessa waved her off. "The night is young. Besides, Zane was just telling me about his new loft downtown. It sounds amazing." "You should see it sometime," Zane said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was a seductive whisper. "I have a great view of the river." "I'd love that," Jessa replied, completely ignoring the fact that her husband was sitting 3 feet away. I finished my beer and stood up. "I'm heading out. Don't wait up." Jessa barely glanced at me. "Drive safe, honey." The walk to my truck gave me time to think. 8 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Public humiliation in front of people we'd known for years. But if Jessa thought she could play me for a fool, she was about to learn otherwise. I drove home to our house on Maple Street, a modest 2-story we'd bought when we still believed in forever. The first thing I did was transfer our joint savings account into my business account. Perfectly legal. My name was on everything. The second thing I did was pack Jessa's clothes into suitcases and set them by the front door. Then I wrote a note and taped it to the largest suitcase. "Found your zipper. Found Zane, too." I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and settled into my recliner to wait. The house felt different already, like a weight had been lifted. Through the window, I could see Mr. Galen next door watering his garden. The old man was a retired cop with a talent for gossip. He'd be useful later. Jessa stumbled through the door at 2 in the morning, reeking of expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She saw the suitcases and froze. "Darren, what's going on?" I held up my phone, showing her a screenshot from the video I'd taken. "Care to explain this?" Her face went pale. That's nothing. Zane was just being helpful." "Helpful?" I nodded slowly. "Is that what we're calling it?" "You're being paranoid. I can't help it if my dress was malfunctioning. And Zane is just a friend from work." I stood up and walked over to her gym bag, which she dropped by the door. Funny thing about friends, Jess. They usually don't require burner phones. I pulled out a cheap flip phone I'd found hidden in the side pocket that morning. She'd gotten sloppy, leaving it behind when she rushed out to meet her girlfriends for their book club lunch. The phone contained 3 months of explicit text messages between Jessa and Zane, but the real prize was a video they'd recorded of themselves in what looked like a hotel room, making jokes about her boring, clueless husband while they planned their next rendezvous. Jessa lunged for the phone, but I held it out of reach. "Sit down. We need to talk." "Where did you get that? You had no right to go through my things." "Your things?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sweetheart, I found this in my house, in a bag I helped you buy, next to a bed I pay for. I'd say that gives me some rights." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. She collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. But I knew Jessa well enough to recognize crocodile tears when I saw them. She was calculating, trying to figure out how to spin this in her favor. "It's not what you think," she started, but I cut her off. "It's exactly what I think. You've been having an affair with Zane for months, probably longer. You've been lying to me, humiliating me in public, and spending our money on hotel rooms and new lingerie that I never got to see. Darren, please, we can work through this. It was just a mistake, a moment of weakness." "Moment?" I scrolled through the phone. "Looks like about 90 moments, give or take, and that's just the texts I can see without getting sick." My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Sasha's name appeared on the screen. "Answer it," I told Jessa. "Put it on speaker." With shaking hands, she accepted the call. "Jess, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you. Listen, we need to do damage control. That creep husband of yours sent photos to half the agency tonight. People are talking." I smiled. "Hi, Sasha. Thanks for confirming that everyone knows." The line went quiet for a long moment. Then Sasha's voice came back, sharp and threatening. "You bastard! You have no idea what you've started." "Actually, I think I have a pretty good idea. But thanks for the warning." I hung up and looked at Jessa, who was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "You sent photos to my work? To my friends?" "Just the highlights. The zipper show was particularly popular." She stood up abruptly. "I'm calling a lawyer." "With what money? I closed the joint accounts an hour ago, and before you ask, the house is in my name. Wedding gift from my parents, remember?" For the first time since I'd known her, Jessa was completely speechless. I picked up my keys and headed for the door. "Your bags are packed. I'd suggest you call Zane. Maybe he has room at that loft with the great river view." "Where are you going?" I paused at the threshold. "To work. Some of us have jobs to get to in the morning." My auto shop, Halloway Customs, sat on 3 acres of prime real estate that I'd bought for a song when the previous owner went bankrupt. Most people saw it as a rundown garage in a rough part of town. I saw potential. Now it was the go-to place for custom work, classic restorations, and the occasional favor for friends who needed their vehicles to be less traceable. Liam Torres, my lead mechanic and the closest thing I had to a best friend, was already under the hood of a '67 Mustang when I arrived at 7 a.m. "You look like hell, boss," he said without looking up. "Rough night?" "You could say that." I grabbed a cup of coffee from the machine in the corner. "How do you feel about a little side project?" Liam slid out from under the car, his boyish face split by a grin. "What kind of side project? The legal kind or the fun kind?" "The educational kind. Someone needs to learn about consequences." I filled him in on the basics while we worked. Liam listened without judgment. He'd been through his own relationship drama and understood that sometimes people needed to face the music for their choices. "So, what's the plan?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. "First, we gather intelligence. Then we make sure everyone involved understands the new rules." Around noon, A silver BMW pulled into the lot. I recognized it immediately, Zane's pride and joy. A pristine M3 that he babied like it was made of spun gold. The driver's side had a long scratch running from the door handle to the rear panel. Zane climbed out, looking around the shop with obvious distaste. He was the kind of guy who probably had his oil changed at the dealership and paid premium prices for basic maintenance. "I need this fixed," he announced, pointing at the scratch. "And I need it done quietly. No insurance claims, no paperwork." Liam and I exchanged glances. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Some psycho keyed it in the parking garage at work. Probably some jealous loser who can't handle seeing success." "That's terrible," I said with mock sympathy. "People can be so petty when they feel betrayed." Zane's eyes narrowed slightly, but he pressed on. "Can you fix it or not?" "Oh, we can fix it. But first, let me ask you something. How's Jessa doing today?" The color drained from his face. "I don't know what you're talking about." Liam stepped forward, a wrench in his hand. "Sure you do, Zane. You know, from the bar last night? The zipper show? Ring any bells?" "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," I interrupted, "is you thinking I'm stupid enough not to notice when someone's playing games with my wife. But here's the thing, I don't get mad. I get even." Zane backed toward his car. "Are you threatening me?" "Threatening? No, I'm educating you about market forces, supply and demand, cause and effect, basic economics." He fumbled for his keys, hands shaking. "You're crazy, both of you." "Maybe, but I'm also the guy who knows where you live, where you work, and what you drive. I'm the guy who has videos of you and my wife planning your little adventures. And I'm the guy who's about to make your life very complicated." Zane jumped into his BMW and peeled out of the lot, leaving rubber marks on the concrete. "Think he'll be back?" Liam asked. "Oh, he'll be back, but next time he won't be driving." I spent the afternoon making calls. The beauty of owning a business in a small city is that everyone knows everyone else. A word here, a favor there, and suddenly information starts flowing like water downhill. By 5 o'clock, I knew that Jessa had called in sick to work. Zane had been in meetings all day trying to explain why photos of him groping a married woman were circulating around the office. And Sasha had been asking around about divorce lawyers. My phone rang just as I was locking up the shop. Unknown number. "Halloway." "You son of a—" Zane's voice was tight with rage. "What did you do to my car?" "I haven't done anything to your car. Yet. It won't start. The engine just turns over and over, but nothing happens." I made a sympathetic noise. "That's unfortunate. Sounds like you might have a fuel delivery problem. Or maybe someone put something in your gas tank. Sugar, perhaps. Though between you and me, that's mostly a myth. Sugar doesn't actually damage engines the way people think." "You're insane." "I'm thorough. There's a difference." The line went quiet for a moment. Then, "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to find a new job, preferably in another state. And I want you to understand that this is just the beginning." "You can't do this. I'll call the police." "And tell them what? That your car broke down? That someone took pictures of you in public? That your girlfriend's husband found out about your affair? I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic." I hung up and climbed into my truck. Time for Phase 2. The ad agency where Jessa and Zane worked occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. The parking garage beneath the building was a maze of concrete pillars and shadowy corners, perfect for a private conversation. I found Zane's BMW on level B2, right where I expected it to be. The hood was up, and Zane was on his phone, probably calling for a tow truck. He looked up as my footsteps echoed across the concrete. "Stay away from me," he warned, backing toward the wall. "Relax, Zane. I just want to talk." "There's nothing to talk about. Whatever happened between Jessa and me is over." "Is it? Because according to the text on her phone, you two were planning another rendezvous for this weekend. Something about christening your new furniture?" He tried to run. I'll give him credit for that. At least he recognized the situation he was in. But Zane was a desk jockey who probably hadn't run anywhere except on a treadmill in years. I caught up with him at the stairwell door. "Going somewhere?" I asked, blocking his path. "Let me go. This is harassment. This is a conversation, though I admit the setting could be better." I grabbed his arm and guided him back toward his car, not roughly, but firmly enough to make my point. "Here's what's going to happen, Zane. You're going to transfer to another office, preferably another city. You're going to stop taking Jessa's calls, and you're going to keep your mouth shut about our little chat." "And if I don't?" I smiled. "Then things get complicated. See, I know about your expense account irregularities. I know about the client you've been overcharging. I know about the cocaine habit that Sasha supplies you with. Should I continue?" His face went white. "How do you—" "I told you, I'm thorough. The question is, are you smart?" For a moment, I thought he might actually agree. Then his expression hardened and he swung at me, a clumsy right hook that telegraphed itself from a mile away. I sidestepped easily and slapped him across the face, hard enough to leave a mark, but not hard enough to cause real damage. He stumbled backward, more from shock than pain. "That was stupid, Zane. Really, really stupid." "You hit me. I'm calling the police." "You swung first. I defended myself, and in case you forgot, we're in a parking garage with security cameras. Should be interesting to see what the footage shows." I leaned in close. "Here's a free piece of advice. When you're in a hole, stop digging. Transfer out, move away, and pretend this conversation never happened. Because if I see you near my wife again, if I hear you've been talking about me, if you so much as breathe in my direction, I will make your life a living hell. Are we clear?" He nodded, holding his cheek. "Good. Oh, and Zane? You might want to check your car. I think someone spray-painted something on the hood while we were talking." I walked away, leaving him to discover the word homewrecker painted in bright red letters across his pristine BMW. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I saw what you did in the garage. We need to talk. S. Sasha." I'd been wondering when she'd make her move. I texted back, "Barley and rye, 1 hour. Time to deal with the puppet master." The Barley and Rye was packed for a Thursday night, filled with the usual crowd of office workers drowning their sorrows and college kids pretending they could handle their liquor. Sasha was waiting for me at a corner table, her laptop open and a smug expression on her face. "Darren," she said as I sat down, "you've been a busy boy." "Just taking care of business. What do you want, Sasha?" She turned her laptop around, showing me security footage from the parking garage. The angle was perfect. It showed me slapping Zane, but not him swinging at me first. "I want you to back off, leave Jessa alone, stop harassing Zane, and pretend none of this happened." I studied the footage for a moment. "Interesting. Where did you get this?" "I have friends everywhere. The question is, what are you willing to do to keep this from going public?" "Let me ask you something, Sasha. How long have you been dealing coke to junior employees at the agency?" Her confident expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" "Tuesday afternoon, 3:47 p.m. You sold a gram to that kid from the mailroom right here in this bar. Wednesday morning, 8:23 a.m., you made another sale in the parking garage. Should I continue?" "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of her handing a small baggie to a young man in exchange for cash. "Security cameras work both ways, sweetheart." She stared at the image, her face going pale. "How did you—" "I told you I'm thorough. Now here's how this is going to work. You're going to delete that footage from the parking garage. You're going to stop enabling Jessa's behavior. And you're going to find a new job, preferably somewhere that doesn't involve corrupting kids young enough to be your children. You can't prove anything with one photo." "You're right. One photo isn't much, but 23 photos, along with video footage and testimony from 3 different witnesses, that might be enough to get the police interested." Sasha closed her laptop with shaking hands. "What do you want?" I want you gone. Transfer, quit, move to another state, I don't care. But I want you out of Jessa's life and out of mine. And if I don't, then I release everything to the police, the DEA, and your boss. Your choice. She stood up abruptly. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. After Sasha left, I ordered another beer and checked my messages. 3 missed calls from Jessa, 2 from Zane, and a text from Liam. Boss, you need to see this. I drove back to the shop, where Liam was waiting with a grin on his face and a tablet in his hands. Check out the agency's internal message board, he said, handing me the device. Someone had leaked screenshots of Jessa and Zane's text messages to the company's private social network. The comments were brutal, coworkers expressing disgust, disappointment, and schadenfreude in equal measure. Several people had tagged HR in their responses. How did this happen? I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. Funny thing about office networks, Liam said. They're only as secure as the weakest password. And password 23 isn't exactly Fort Knox. You didn't. I didn't do anything illegal. I just happened to notice that Zane uses the same password for everything, including his work email. And once I was in his email, well, it seemed like a shame not to share those interesting text screenshots he'd been saving. My phone rang. Jessa's name appeared on the screen. You need to stop this, she said without preamble. People are staring at me. My boss wants to see me first thing tomorrow morning. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to air our dirty laundry in public. I never aired anything. You're the one who... I'm the one who what? Defended myself? Exposed the truth? Made sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person I married? Darren, please. I made a mistake, but this has gone too far. You're ruining my career, my reputation. Your reputation was ruined the moment you decided to cheat on your husband. I'm just making sure everyone else knows about it. Where am I supposed to go? You locked me out of my own house. It's not your house, it never was. And as for where you're supposed to go, I suggest you call Zane. Though from what I hear, he's having some transportation issues. I hung up and looked at Liam. How do you feel about a little road trip? The next morning was the annual Riverside Festival, a local tradition that drew half the city to the park along the river. Food trucks, live music, craft booths, and enough gossip to fuel the rumor mill for months. It was the perfect stage for the next act of my little drama. Jessa was there, of course, trying to put on a brave face while people whispered and pointed. She'd clearly spent the night somewhere other than our house. Her clothes were wrinkled, and her makeup was smudged. Zane was conspicuously absent. I bought a funnel cake and found a spot near the main stage where I could watch the show. It didn't take long for the entertainment to begin. Darren! Jessa spotted me and marched over, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not here. Somewhere private. I looked around at the crowd of familiar faces, all pretending not to eavesdrop on our conversation. I think here is perfect. After all, you never had a problem with public displays before. That's different and you know it. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're just upset that the audience has changed. Mr. Galen appeared at my elbow, his weathered face creased with curiosity. Everything all right here, Darren? Just fine, Mr. Galen. Jessa was just telling me about her new career in entertainment. Entertainment? The old man's eyes lit up with interest. Oh, yes. She's quite the performer. Specializes in costume malfunctions and audience participation. Jessa's face turned red. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. A small crowd had gathered around us, drawn by the drama like moths to a flame. I recognized several people from the bar, the agency, and the neighborhood. Word would spread from here to every corner of the city by nightfall. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, raising my voice slightly. I'd like you all to meet my wife, Jessa. Some of you may have seen her recent performance at the Barley and Rye, where she gave new meaning to the phrase wardrobe malfunction. Stop it, Jessa hissed. Or maybe you saw the encore presentation, featuring her and her co-star Zane in a series of private text messages that were accidentally made public. Quite the love story, really. Someone in the crowd laughed. Others pulled out their phones, recording the confrontation. Jessa tried to walk away, but I followed her, my voice carrying across the festival grounds. Don't be shy, sweetheart. Tell everyone about your new hobby. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your adventures in adultery. She spun around, tears streaming down her face. I hate you. Now there's the honesty I've been waiting for. 8 years of marriage, and it only took public humiliation to get you to tell the truth. The crowd was growing larger, drawn by the spectacle. I could see phones recording from multiple angles, social media posts being crafted in real time. By tonight, Jessa's meltdown would be the talk of the town. You want to know the truth? She screamed. Fine, yes, I had an affair. Yes, I was planning to leave you. And yes, I'm glad it's finally out in the open because living with you was like being married to a corpse. The crowd went silent. Even I was surprised by the venom in her voice. There we go, I said quietly. That wasn't so hard, was it? Jessa looked around at the sea of faces staring at her, the phones recording her breakdown, the whispers and pointed fingers. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the video on her burner phone, the months of lies, the public humiliation she'd put me through, and the sympathy evaporated. Enjoy the festival, everyone, I announced. And remember, sometimes the best entertainment is free. I walked away, leaving Jessa standing alone in the middle of the crowd, finally understanding what it felt like to be the one left behind. My phone buzzed with notifications all evening, social media posts, text messages, and voicemails from people who'd witnessed the festival confrontation. The video of Jessa's meltdown had already been shared dozens of times, and the comments ranged from sympathetic to savage. I was sitting on my back porch with a beer, enjoying the first peaceful moment I'd had in weeks, when headlights swept across my driveway. Jessa's sedan pulled up to the curb, and she sat there for several minutes before getting out. She looked terrible. Her hair was disheveled. Her clothes were the same ones she'd worn to the festival, and her makeup had long since smeared into raccoon eyes. This wasn't the polished, confident woman who'd humiliated me at the bar. This was someone who'd finally realized the consequences of her actions. Darren, she called out as she approached the porch. Please, we need to talk. I thought we covered everything at the festival. Not like this. Not with everyone watching. She gestured toward Mr. Galen's house, where the curtains were suspiciously askew. Can I come in? No. Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I studied her face in the porch light. Say what you need to say from there. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to hear it. Sorry for what exactly? The affair, the lies, the public humiliation? Or are you just sorry you got caught? All of it. I'm sorry for all of it. Tears started flowing again. I never meant for things to go this far. What did you think would happen, Jess? That I'd just accept it? That I'd pretend not to notice while you paraded your boyfriend around in front of our friends? I thought maybe you didn't care anymore. We'd been drifting apart for months, barely talking, barely touching. I felt invisible. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. I made a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. But what you're doing now, destroying my career, my reputation, my entire life, that's not justice. That's revenge. I took a long sip of my beer. You're right. It is revenge. And you know what? It feels pretty good. This isn't you, Darren. You're not cruel like this. Maybe you never really knew me. She took a step closer. I know you're hurt. I know you're angry. But please, can't we find a way to work through this? Can't we try counseling or... No. The finality of the word seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, one hand pressed to her chest. So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just throwing it all away? I'm not the one who threw it away, Jess. You did that the moment you decided Zane was more important than your wedding vows. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? What about loyalty? What about respect? What about not humiliating your spouse in front of half the city? She had no answer for that. Where have you been staying? I asked, more out of curiosity than concern. My car, mostly. A motel last night. Zane won't take my calls. Smart man. Finally figured out that you're toxic. I have nowhere to go, Darren. No money, no credit cards, no... You should have thought about that before you decided to blow up our life. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the exact instant when desperation turned to anger. Fine, she said, her voice hardening. If that's how you want to play it. But this isn't over. I'll find a way to make you pay for what you've done to me. Looking forward to it. She stormed back to her car and peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing against the asphalt. I watched her taillights disappear around the corner and finished my beer in peace. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Halloway. You think you're so smart. Jessa's voice was slurred with alcohol and fury. You think you've won, but I'm going to destroy you the same way you destroyed me. Where are you, Jess? Wouldn't you like to know? Maybe I'm at the police station, filing a report about how you assaulted Zane. Maybe I'm at a lawyer's office, planning to take you for everything you're worth. Maybe I'm... The line went quiet. Then I heard the sound of a car engine revving. Jess, are you driving? Maybe I'll drive right into a tree, then you'll be sorry, then everyone will know what kind of monster you really are. My stomach dropped. Drunk, desperate, and behind the wheel, this could end very badly for everyone involved. Pull over, right now. Whatever you're thinking, this isn't the answer. Don't tell me what to do. You don't get to control me anymore. I could hear traffic in the background, the sound of her engine racing. She was on the highway, probably doing twice the speed limit. Jess, listen to me. Find a safe place to stop. Call a cab. We can figure this out, but not if you're... The line went silent. I tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. I grabbed my keys and headed for my truck, my mind racing through possibilities. She could be anywhere, on any of a dozen highways that crisscrossed the city. Then I remembered something. Jessa's car had GPS tracking through the insurance company's app. I'd installed it myself to get a discount on our premiums. If I could access her account, it took me 3 tries to guess her password, our anniversary date naturally, but I got in. Her car was on Route 9, heading north toward the state line at nearly 90 miles per hour. I called 911 as I drove, reporting a drunk driver and giving them her license plate number and location. Then I called Liam. Boss, it's almost midnight. I need you to track a car. Jessa's lost it, and she's going to hurt someone if we don't stop her. On it. Give me the details. 20 minutes later, I caught up with the police cruiser that had pulled Jessa over at a rest stop 15 miles outside the city. She was in the back of the patrol car, and her sedan was being loaded onto a tow truck. The officer, a young woman who looked barely old enough to drive herself, approached my truck as I parked. You the husband? Yeah. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Legally, not so much. DUI, reckless endangerment, excessive speed. She's looking at serious charges. Through the patrol car's window, I could see Jessa slumped against the seat, her face streaked with tears and mascara. She looked up and saw me watching, and for a moment, our eyes met. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just emptiness, where 8 years of marriage used to be. What happens now? I asked the officer. She'll be processed. Probably spend the night in jail. Arraignment tomorrow morning. You might want to call a lawyer. For her or for me? The officer gave me a sharp look. That's up to you. I watched them drive away with my wife in the back seat, then called Liam to let him know everything was handled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was going home to a house that was truly mine. The game was almost over. Time for the final move. The barley and rye had never seen a crowd like this. Word had spread through social media, workplace gossip, and neighborhood whispers that something big was happening tonight. The owner, Pete Kowalski, had even set up the big screen TV that usually showed sports games, though nobody knew exactly what they'd be watching. I arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, wearing my best shirt and a smile that probably looked more predatory than friendly. Liam was already there, nursing a beer at the bar and keeping an eye on the crowd. He gave me a subtle nod. Everything was ready. Jessa walked in 10 minutes later, looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. Her stint in jail had clearly taken its toll, and the expensive clothes couldn't hide the defeat in her shoulders. She'd made bail that morning, thanks to a loan from her sister in Buffalo, but the legal bills were just beginning. Zane arrived shortly after, his usual swagger replaced by nervous energy. His BMW was still in the shop, my shop, actually, though he didn't know that yet. The spray paint had been easy enough to remove, but the sugar in the gas tank had required a complete fuel system flush. Expensive work. Sasha was the last to arrive, her eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal. She'd been suspended from the agency pending an investigation into her extracurricular activities, and word on the street was that several of her clients had already found new suppliers. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, standing up as the crowd quieted. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I know many of you have been following the recent developments in my personal life, and I thought it was time to clear the air." Pete dimmed the lights and fired up the projector. The first image that appeared on the screen was a text message conversation between Jessa and Zane, complete with explicit details about their plans and disparaging comments about me. A murmur went through the crowd. Several people pulled out their phones to record the presentation. "For those who might have missed the earlier episodes," I continued, "this is the story of a marriage that ended not with a bang, but with a zipper." The next slide showed photos from that first night at this very bar. Jessa leaning into Zane, his hands on her back, the intimate smiles and touches that had told the whole story to anyone paying attention. Jessa stood up abruptly. "Stop this, please. Sit down, sweetheart. We're just getting to the good part." The presentation continued with screenshots of their hotel rendezvous, expense account receipts that Zane had used to pay for their dates, and even security footage from the agency parking garage showing them in compromising positions. But the real showstopper was the video from Jessa's burner phone, the one where she and Zane mocked me while planning their future together. "My boring, clueless husband," Jessa's voice echoed through the bar from the speakers. "He has no idea what's coming." The crowd's reaction was immediate and brutal. Gasps, laughter, and pointed comments filled the air. Someone started a slow clap that quickly spread through the room. Zane tried to leave, but found his path blocked by a wall of curious onlookers. "This is harassment. This is illegal." "Actually," I said, clicking to the next slide, "this is just the opening act." The new image showed financial records, specifically Zane's expense account and the creative ways he'd been billing personal expenses to client accounts. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, even jewelry that he'd bought for Jessa, all charged to unsuspecting clients. "Embezzlement is such an ugly word," I mused. "I prefer to think of it as creative accounting." Zane's face went white. "Those records are confidential. How did you—" "I'm very thorough, Zane. We've established this." The final section of my presentation focused on Sasha's side business. Photos of drug transactions, text messages arranging sales, even audio recordings of her discussing prices and quantities with clients. "And let's not forget our supporting cast," I said, as Sasha's image filled the screen. "Because what's a good affair without an enabler?" Sasha bolted for the door, but the crowd was too thick. She ended up pressed against the wall, trapped like the rat she was. The beautiful thing about truth, I continued, is that it doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your reputation or your career or your carefully constructed lies. Truth just is. I clicked to the final slide, a simple message that read, "The end." "So here's where we stand," I announced to the captivated audience. My wife chose to have an affair with her coworker, using company resources and involving her friends in an elaborate deception. When confronted, she chose to double down on the lies rather than accept responsibility. And when the truth came out, she chose to threaten me rather than seek forgiveness. The room was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Some of you might think I've been too harsh, that revenge isn't the answer, that I should have taken the high road. I paused, looking directly at Jessa. But here's the thing. Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their choices. Sometimes the only way to restore balance is to make sure everyone understands exactly what happened and who was responsible. Jessa was crying openly now, her carefully maintained facade finally cracking completely. "Darren, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know you are, Jess. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry everyone knows the truth. You're sorry your perfect plan fell apart. But are you sorry for what you did? Are you sorry for the months of lies, the humiliation, the betrayal?" She couldn't answer. We both knew the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, raising my beer in a toast, "I present to you the former Mrs. Jessa Halloway. May she find whatever it is she's been looking for, preferably in another city." The crowd erupted in applause and laughter. Phones flashed as people captured the moment for posterity. Within hours, the video would be shared across every social media platform in the city. I finished my beer and headed for the door, leaving the three conspirators to face the crowd's judgment. Outside, rain had started to fall, washing the streets clean and promising a fresh start. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You win. We're leaving town. All of us. Don't contact us again." I deleted the message without responding. There was nothing left to say. The game was over. I had won. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new possibilities. But tonight, justice had been served, truth had prevailed, and everyone in the city knew exactly what kind of people they'd been dealing with. I drove home through the rain, past the house that was finally, truly mine, and smiled at the thought of starting over. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting free. The story was finished. The players had left the stage, and I was ready for whatever came next.